Coming up today on Retirement Made Simple, we're going to look at some of the most common fears in retirement and see if we can find ways to help you gain control and hopefully replace those fears with confidence in your retirement. Retirement Made Simple starts right now.
This is Retirement Made Simple with E.A. Buck. E.A. Buck focuses on finances, preservation, and retirement. Led by Chief Executive Officer Katie Buck and Chief Investment Officer Jeff Buck, E.A. Buck helps you grow and preserve what you've worked a lifetime to build. Each week, Katie and Jeff help you tackle some of the biggest challenges in retirement, including retirement planning, retirement taxes, wealth management, Social Security, and navigating federal benefits. Welcome to Retirement Made Simple.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm Amy Sharp here with Jeff Buck, Chief Investment Officer and Private Wealth Advisor, and John Ingraham, Private Wealth Manager. For so many Americans, the word retirement has seemingly become synonymous with the word fear. According to the results of a recent national opinion poll, working age Americans are increasingly worried about retirement, and 79% of Americans agree that our nation faces a retirement crisis. So I'm here once again with Jeff and John. I'm so glad to be back with you guys. Thank you for being here. This idea that retirement is something to be frightened about, that's kind of disturbing to hear, isn't it?
It is, Amy, and it's unfortunate that people would even think about retirement and relate that to fear. There's good reason behind it with some of the shifts that have happened over the last few decades, and without having pensions in place like many people had, I'd say 2 or 3 decades ago when they retired. But at the same point, I don't think it's necessary for most people. So hopefully today, during the next 30 minutes, most of the audience will be able to walk away thinking maybe a little bit more clarity around what the future looks like and what some of the steps are they need to do to create that confidence and avoid that fear.
Absolutely. That's what our role today is, to give you some insight on that. And as we think about Americans feeling frightened at the prospects of retiring, I guess I would just pose this to you, John. Is this something you're seeing? And why do you think it's happening?
You know, Amy, every day on the news, they just bombard us with all these fears. I mean, that's what sells is bad news. So they hear the statistics that are produced. They hear about, you know, this next administration is going to take away their Social Security. There's all this fear that's created. So we see it all the time. Here's what we do, okay? And Jeff and I can both agree with this. First thing we got to do is you got to have a plan. And the first part of the plan is we get their fears down. If you have a plan and you know where you're headed and how to get there, then the fear starts to diminish. And we watch it happen right in front of our eyes in these offices. But it is a concern, and it's a big concern of these people. They're going to be going without a paycheck all of a sudden. For those that have already retired, they don't know how they're going to do that, okay? Our job is to create a replacement for those paychecks. Show them an example of what's the best years and dates to take those Social Security checks. Get a plan in place. That's the big deal. And part of that, of course, is the tax planning piece.
Absolutely. Let's dive into this poll that I mentioned at the top of the show. According to the poll, 77% of Americans believe that the disappearance of pensions has made the American dream less attainable. What do you make of that?
I mean, you just said basically 4 out of 5 people don't feel confident going into retirement because of the fact that they don't have a pension in place, which basically just means a guaranteed income provided to them for the rest of their life. That's concerning to hear those stats as a financial advisor. I think what it comes back to is just the reality of you have your Social Security. Many people had pensions in the past. Because of ERISA laws back in the 70s and the creation of 401k plans, it became an obligation for individuals to now start to take ownership of creating their own financial plan. And what they really need is to think about it like a 3-leg stool. And if we were all sitting here on just a 2-leg stool, I don't think we'd have our legs crossed.
No.
Not at all.
We wouldn't be very relaxed.
We wouldn't be very relaxed. We'd probably have a sense of fear.
Yes.
That 3rd leg is really, you have your investments, you have your pension, you have your Social Security. Well, if you have your Social Security and you have your investments, let's just replace the pension. Let's look for investment strategies that can provide a fixed stream of income that they know they can't outlive. And that then starts to relieve that fear.
Let's take a look at the second key takeaway. This one's all about long-term care. We've talked about this on the show before. 80% of respondents worried about the rising cost of long-term nursing care. It's a very real fear. What do you think of that finding, John?
Well, I think it's absolutely true. And it's mostly the females that come into our office. They're petrified of it because they've seen it in their own family. They've either had to take care of their parents or their friends, and they see it coming at them. I'd like to see the men get a little bit more serious about this, but typically that's what I see is the ladies are real concerned about it. So we try to get that fear down, and it's a real fear. Why? Again, insurance companies, that if they have a long-term care plan, in the states that I'm working in right now, they got a letter in the last few years that said they're going to have a 46% increase in the cost of that premium, and that's frightening to them. 46%. They go ahead 5 years and they add another 46% in their mind. It's a real deal. It's a real concern. But I think it's got to be part of the plan. If you know how you're going to address it, put the plan together. That's the way we do it. And there's ways, alternative ways, which I think, Jeff, if you could touch on some of the alternative ways that we can cover that fear and cover that long-term care.
Yeah, I mean, I would just come back to state if there's two major fears. One is it's a 3-leg stool that's now just 2 legs and people are lacking stability. And the second is that the individuals that are concerned about long-term care, they tend to be individuals that are 65 or older. There was a recent study that indicated that 70% of 65-year-olds will be eligible. They're going to qualify for long-term care needs at some point in their life with an average of 3 years of needing that care. And the fear is really, do I become a burden to my friends, my family, my kids, or can I afford to live a reasonable life if I need this care? And that's why you go back to the women, because the women happen to be smart and intuitive and thinking towards the future, and men don't want to think about those challenges. We don't want to think about those challenges. We think of ourselves as inferior.
Right.
And so the women are thinking of the future and saying, how can I protect myself?
A great way to end that segment. All right, very good. Thank you so much. Great insight. Coming up next, Jeff and John will be covering one more key aspect of this national poll about retirement fears. And later, the guys are in the hot seat for retirement IQ, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
How does your future look in retirement? When you don't have a strategy, the future might look a little fuzzy. But with someone asking the right questions and helping you learn where you truly stand, it can become easier to work towards your goals. You need a plan to help generate income that will last as long as you need it. And the first step to creating an income plan is an analysis of where you are now. Let us help you bring your retirement into focus with your free income analysis today.
Planning for retirement can be complicated. Helping create income that lasts, making sure your health care is covered, investing while managing risk, and don't forget about taxes. If you're overwhelmed, you're not alone. The good news is we have what you need to give you confidence to start planning for your ideal retirement, all in one convenient resource. You'll get answers to some of your biggest retirement questions in this easy-to-understand, practical resource. And best of all, there's no cost to you. Take the first step toward a confident retirement and get yours today.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're talking about fear in retirement. The results of a new national poll actually painting the picture of a generation of Americans who are often more afraid than excited when they think of retirement. Back with Jeff and John, and they're hopefully helping you understand this a little bit and giving you more confidence. I think that's the total goal. We've talked about pensions and we've talked about long-term care. Those are two big fears that were highlighted in this study. What else sometimes frightens individuals as they're heading into retirement?
Yeah, I think a lot of individuals are looking for clarity going into retirement. And without that clarity in general, that's where the fear comes from. We talked about a few things just a minute ago with regards to getting towards retirement. What we didn't bring up was Social Security. And quite frankly, Social Security is a big talking point politically, as well as just within households and individuals. And there's a lot of fear around the stability of Social Security, as well as how to potentially utilize Social Security to its fullest. I think there was some recent studies saying that 87% of Americans have an interest in seeing Congress enact more around Social Security, providing more benefits. What I can tell you from my understanding is that the trust fund behind Social Security has indicated that it's fully funded for, a few more years, up until the early 2030s. And then from that point on, it's partially funded, about 85% funded through the 2050s. So I personally don't have a ton of fear around Social Security not being there in the future. I don't see Social Security increasing significantly for the average American. And I would say some changes in front of us, possible means testing and things like that they've thrown out there. But that can all be addressed, once again, by just talking to somebody that's knowledgeable and getting some guidance as to how to potentially utilize Social Security while you can.
And I think that's important to point out because I do believe maybe a lot of our viewers, a lot of individuals that you probably talk to do think Social Security just might not be there. It's important to have that perspective. As we look at this poll overall, John, how do Americans feel about retirement in your mind as you see the study itself and then in your opinion?
Yeah, I will tell you the fear gauge is way up on all statistics, especially in the last few years, okay? I mean, number one, they're more fearful than they were even in 2020. And 2020 was no picnic with COVID. Then on top of that, we've had the recent jump in inflation they hadn't seen in 40 years. Well, some of those people never got a chance to experience that. And they go to the grocery store and they see it every day. They go to the gas pump, they see that. They see these things, and it's making them more fearful. These statistics on all the fear gauges are way up, okay? And I see it all the time. Again, I go back to just get the fear down. Show them a way to get this thing taken care of. When we do that, and you have a plan, as Jeff said, the big thing is the uncertainty, the unknown. People fear the unknown, including me. I want to plan, I want to know what's going to happen, and I want to know how to get there. So that's kind of the way we handle it in our office. Jeff?
Yeah, I agree. No, absolutely.
Given all that we've discussed today and really diving into this national poll, and sometimes polls, you can, take it or leave it with those numbers, but it's pretty telling in what we're seeing here. Do you think people have the right to be nervous, fearful, not confident? I guess there's so many different ways to say it when it comes to retirement.
Yeah, it's a great question, Amy. I would say they have the right to be anything that they choose to be. My hope is that people don't go into retirement with a sense of fear. I'd say that some people, they can afford to retire when they're 50 or 55, and others can't necessarily afford to retire until they're 85 or 80 or 75. I mean, you don't really want to ever hear the words 80 or 85, but I think having clarity, if your goal is to retire at 65 or 67, then what is that plan going to look like to get there? If you don't have a pension, how do you create that third leg to your stool to provide some stability as you're moving into retirement? If you're concerned about Social Security, get your questions addressed. How do you potentially maximize your Social Security benefits? How do you take your spouse into consideration, correct? So by having the clarity, by having that confidence, that's what gives people the right to go into retirement with a sense of confidence. They know they can go and enjoy those first few years or that first decade, or maybe the first 2 decades of their retirement, traveling, like we talked about in the surveys, taking 4, 5, 6 trips a year. That's what we want to see people doing as they're going into retirement, but it's all relative to what their income, what their expenses are, correct, what their assets look like, and what their fixed income streams look like in retirement.
It really comes down to having that conversation, not being afraid to ask the questions,
Right.
because I think sometimes we can be paralyzed by our fear. We just don't go face what is in front of us.
Exactly. So I get the fear gauges all the time in my office. I see them come in uptight about this. I'd say for Jeff's piece, I'd also say, well, look, try to create 6 streams of income. Let's start right now. Boom, boom, boom. You got 2 Social Securities, you got a pension coming in. There's 3 streams. We're halfway home. Once you get them, their fear gauge down, then they can get practical and start making a plan. All of the fear gauges are up, though. Since 2020, the fear gauge has gone from 67 to 79%. The second thing is 55% of Americans really think there's a crisis out there. That's up. And then lastly, inflation. They haven't seen this kind of inflation in 40 years. Some have never seen it if they're early retirees. So with all that said, I like to just make them at ease, sit down, go over a plan, give them maybe the first time we sit down, a lot of times just give them a cash flow plan and say, this is what it can be.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a heavy show so far, so we're going to take a pause and have a little fun when we come back. Jeff and John are in the hot seat for Retirement IQ. And later, we'll cover some simple, actionable steps you can take to help you feel more confident and potentially feel less afraid heading into retirement. Jeff and John have your checklist challenge. Stay with us.
On the surface, your retirement plan might look solid. With your 401k or IRA, Social Security, investments, and insurance coverage, you appear to have it all covered. But what could you be missing? Below the surface, is your retirement exposed to too much risk? It's time for a deeper dive into your portfolio. We can help you uncover the risk that lies beneath the surface and learn about strategies to help preserve your savings. Get your free risk analysis today.
When it comes to planning for the future, time may not always be on your side. Think about your taxes. Tax rates are historically low right now, but they'll likely be higher in the future. With the right planning and strategy, you might be able to cut your tax bill in the years to come. But don't wait until it's too late to take advantage of today's lower tax rates. Let us be your partner in planning for tomorrow so you can enjoy your retirement today.
And now it's time to put our knowledge to the test with this week's Retirement IQ. It's one of my favorite segments. Jeff, John, how do you feel about this? You ready?
I feel
Yeah, I
you
think
ready?
this is my second favorite part of the show, like I said last time, right?
Second
So,
favorite.
yeah.
What's the first favorite?
I like to give like solutions, so
Yeah,
you know.
Well,
He and I
this
both.
is where we take a break from the heavy, remember?
Thank
This is
you.
kind of,
Yeah.
relax and have some fun here. This is always interesting to hear some of these. This is a true false, actually. According to the Employee Benefits Research Institute, less than 50% of retirees said they have 3 months of emergency savings.
I'll take that one. So unfortunately, it's actually closer to 70% of Americans that completed this survey indicated they had less than 3 months of savings. The
You're right.
reality to that is the best advice I can give somebody that's looking to start a plan, looking to put money away for themselves, looking to pay off their debts and build up their cash flow, is to pay themselves first. At the end of the day, we all get caught up in our expenses. And it doesn't matter if your expenses are $1,000 a month or $100,000 a month. It's all relative. And so if you can pay yourself first, if you've got $10,000, if you've got $5,000 a month coming in, start with 10%. Whatever it is, just start by paying yourself 10% before you pay one bill, before you take care of anything else, and then force yourself to change your lifestyle over time. Maybe it's a slightly smaller place. Maybe you don't need that extra fourth bedroom. Maybe you're not buying the Joneses car next door, but instead you're buying something that's a little bit better priced. But if you start there, I promise, as long as you're paying attention to what you're doing, you're not paying your bills. You have to still pay your bills. You have that obligation. But as long as you're adapting to pay yourself first and you start with 10%, try to work yourself to 20%. And years later, you will thank yourself for that success.
Yeah, if I may add to that, Jeff, I think you got to make a choice. You could either choose to make those decisions now, early on, or be forced to make those decisions later on. It's easy to make the decisions now.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. Okay, next question. What year did the stock market stop using fractions, as in 1 3/16 US dollars, to price shares?
Well, it was interesting timing behind that particular period of time in which shares were no longer priced in fractions. It was midway through 3 years of a market fall. And so if you're an audience out there, what 3 years in the last 4 or 5 decades did the market fall consistently in a row, nearly double digits? And that was 2000, 2001, and 2002.
Right.
So back in 2001 is when coincidentally shares were priced differently.
I didn't want to talk about fractions, but you were willing to take that one. So nice work.
You're welcome.
It turned out well. Okay, question number 3. According to a survey from the Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies, what percentage of retirees expect to live between 90 and 99? John, you have thoughts on this one? I think this is, I
Yeah, it's
love this
fascinating.
mindset.
It's fascinating. So we sit down with people every day, and believe it or not, the answer is 21%. Okay?
Okay, yeah,
21%
you're right.
of people feel that they're going to live past 95 or to 100. See? And in the fastest growing segment of the population, the fact is people over 100.
Yeah,
It's the fastest
you
growing.
add 10% of those that expect to live
Yeah.
past 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on board with that. I want to.
It's interesting as well, since EA Buck was founded in Honolulu, Hawaii
Yes.
back in 1980 through my father,
Yeah.
and he wanted to live in a beautiful place and build a business, and he chose to do that. And I'm very fortunate to be able to have joined him more than 20 years ago. I work with a lot of people that are from different parts of the world, and many of them are from northern Japan. And Japan has one of the longest life expectancies in the world.
Mhm.
So at a young age in my career, I got to hear about people from them that had parents that were 100 or 103 or 105, and they were clearly looking to live many, many years as well.
Never
So-
even a thought of living or, dying before that.
Exactly. And so if you think about it, what's the greatest fear that comes along with longevity? Fear of losing
Yes,
your money,
money.
right? So you run out of money.
Mhm.
So if you are one of those 20% that believe there's a good possibility you're going to live into your 90s, one, make sure you're not working with a financial planner that thinks you're going to pass away at 87,
Good
which is
point.
one of the statistical averages, right? Because that could go work against you. And then number 2, look for strategies now where maybe you could incorporate an investment or a policy that's going to provide you some sense of certainty that you know you're not going to outlive it, regardless if you're 85, 95, or 105.
Yeah, I tell you, it's very comforting when you can show somebody how they can get something that'll never run out.
Yep,
And
it is.
I know it is for me, Jeff. I
Yep.
have them. You have them. We have
For
it for
people
our
that look
clients.
for that, I think it's an important aspect. Yep.
Great insight. These are always fun. Lots of good little tidbits and great information. Okay, still to come, you'll learn some of the simple steps you can take today to potentially help you feel more confident and less afraid of retirement. Because how useful is knowledge without action? Stay tuned.
How does your future look in retirement? When you don't have a strategy, the future might look a little fuzzy. But with someone asking the right questions and helping you learn where you truly stand, it can become easier to work towards your goals. You need a plan to help generate income that will last as long as you need it. And the first step to creating an income plan is an analysis of where you are now. Let us help you bring your retirement into focus with your free income analysis today.
On the surface, your retirement plan might look solid. With your 401k or IRA, Social Security, investments, and insurance coverage, you appear to have it all covered. But what could you be missing? Below the surface, is your retirement exposed to too much risk? It's time for a deeper dive into your portfolio. We can help you uncover the risk that lies beneath the surface and learn about strategies to help preserve your savings. Get your free risk analysis today.
Thanks for joining us today on Retirement Made Simple with Jeff Buck and John Ingraham. It's been a great conversation on a topic that a lot of people don't really want to talk about, being fearful, but sometimes when we address these issues, we come face to face with them and we get great insight like we did from you all. We kind of go back to that saying that we share a lot here on our show where we say knowledge is power. It's good to have this information, isn't it?
It sure is. And as Dale Carnegie said, knowledge is only power if you apply it. And I think that that's something we could walk away with today is how do we apply aspects of planning that can help us overcome fears, right? So fear really comes from like a lack of knowledge or understanding, a lack of clarity in our minds, or maybe a document that we can reference. Everybody has a different level of fear. Some people carry very little fear when it comes to their finances, others a tremendous amount of fear. And so my recommendations are pretty simple for those that bear any level of fear when it comes to finances, whether it's clarity around how much risk are you taking, how much might you lose in your portfolio in a down market versus how much you might make in an up market? Will you outlive your assets? Will your spouse be okay? Right? There's a lot of couples where it's one responsible and the other's not. And there's that fear that they're going to pass away and their spouse is not going to be well taken care of. Whatever those fears are, start by trying to identify what your main level of fear are. What are the top 3 things that are creating concern for you when it comes to finances, when it comes to long-term care, when it comes to taxes, and how they impact you? And write that down. Then take an inventory of your investments, of your portfolio. And then from there, start to work backwards and say, hey, is it worth a conversation with 1 or 2 advisors to get a couple of opinions and understand the risk associated to my portfolio versus that I'm comfortable with? To understand your current cash flow, meaning your current income versus expenses, versus that of what it might look like in retirement, right? So when you have clarity, all the time, we get to help people create that clarity. And it's amazing. Someone can walk into an office, feel a sense of tension, and walk out. And they're jovial.
Yeah,
it's
their shoulders just kind of
it's
down.
absolutely crazy. So sometimes it's just getting an actual document, which in our world is called a financial plan, and allowing an advisor to build a financial plan that's customized to the client's needs and provide them a document that they can walk out with, that they can reference going forward to say, this is why I know I'll be okay. This is why I know my spouse will be okay, or this is why I know my kids or grandkids will be okay, because maybe it's a lot more than just them.
John, final thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everything Jeff says. I think the biggest job that we have, or the biggest challenge, is trying to take that fear gauge way down. And we do that is exactly the way Jeff says. There's nothing better than to put a starting plan in their place. And a lot of times I just tell them, let's schedule the next time we sit down. They're more anxious to do that at that point. They really, really want to get that second plan in place. They want to sit down and they want to hear more. We're starting to solve their problem. People watching this show today, if you have an advisor, get them to help you solve the problem. If they're not solving the problem for you, give our office a call. Get a second opinion. I always recommend that. So that's kind of my advice on the whole thing, Jeff. Anything else?
No, thank you.
That's a wrap. Great.
Good.
Great show today. Thank you so much. Great insight as always. With everything going on in our world today, it's no wonder you may be concerned about preserving your wealth for your future and your loved ones. Jeff and John and their team can help you develop wealth preservation strategies so you can spend your time doing what you love with the people who matter most to you. For Jeff, John, and the team at EA Buck Financial Services, I'm Amy Sharp. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next time.